In this module, I'm going to show you how to annotate a model and output a document. And once again, you can follow along, or you can choose to follow the step-by-step exercise guide. This is exercise 2, and you can follow along or follow the guide, whichever you prefer. I do recommend that you watch me perform the exercise first, and then you follow the document and perform the exercise yourself. Going back to the Process Studio, first we need to reopen our process definition, and in order to do that we need to launch the process modeling tool. So you have to remember that the Studio is one tool, and within that Studio the modeler is another tool in and of itself. So we have to launch the modeler into the Process Studio, and we do that by either clicking on the icon or using the File New Process Definition menu. And now that I have the modeler open, I can do an open to locate the definition or the model that we previously created and saved on the desktop. At this point, you might want to add annotations or really text to the model just to provide more information to the reader of the model. And there's different tools to add text to the model. So we have a text annotation tool and just a static text tool. There's really no difference. Annotations really came later with the BPMN standard, and text was something that was inherent in the old process design tool of BizFlow. So both are available. They really just both allow you to add text onto the tool, onto the map. So if you click one of them and click into the screen, that's going to allow you to then add text to the screen. You can use the control key, and that can then allow you to shape that text box in terms of where you want to put that text box. And then if you click into it, you can then modify the text. You can also copy one annotation. So once you create one, you can copy and you can paste it by right-clicking on the item. So I'm going to do that. So that gives us the ability then to just add text and other information to the model. In addition, it's common to color code certain things in the map. If I wanted to color code the approve and disapprove, and I just realized in my map that we did this backwards, so let's change this where the out path should be approve, because once it's approved it's going to end the process, and we really want to return it on the disapprove. So we can just modify and update that by clicking in to each of those labels. And it's again often common to color code the lines. In this case, I want to color code the line that goes back to the previous activity. And if I right click on that line and I select its property, that then brings up a screen where I can change the color of that sequence flow line or transition line. And I can also change the width. So we're going to make that disapprove path in red, so it's very clear that that's the path going back after a rejection. It's also typical when, and you'll see later on down the road, to use color coding to indicate, for example, that there's some logic, for example, maybe an action condition or something on that transition line, so that in the future somebody doesn't inadvertently remove that line. So it's common and best practice in BizFlow to color code lines that have conditional logic. In addition to color coding, you can also change the icons of your activities. Again, I can do this a couple different ways, but if I double click on this activity and I go to the icon menu, I can see that there's different icons that I can choose from. And in this particular case, maybe I want to show an approval stamp on this particular activity. So I select the icon and then simply click OK, and that's going to change the icon on that activity. So you can see that you can create these maps and make them more intuitive or more informative by annotating and changing characteristics of the attributes of the activities and of the map as a whole. At this point, I want to produce a document from this map. And in order to do that, I can go to the Tools menu and I can select Documentation. And as you can see, I have the ability to be selective or inclusive. I can say, give me everything about the process and everything about the activities and events within this process, or I can be more selective. Let's start out and let's produce a document where we want the flow and maybe some general process information and the activity list and perhaps all of the activity information. And again, you can be selective and choose what you might want to output in a document. Once you select what you want, then this is a little quirky, you browse first. So you click the browse button first and you name the document. So my first document, and I'm going to save that. And once it loads that name into the path, then you can click OK, and that's going to launch and open that document that was just produced. And you may find that it's open behind the studio window. So if it doesn't pop up on top of the studio, you may wish to simply move the studio out of the way, and you're likely to find it below or underneath the studio window. And you can see it opens up and it provides me with information about the process. So there's general information like who created it and when and what version it is. It provides the flow diagram. And then it'll provide me with detailed information about this process. And so this serves and can serve a couple of purposes. When you're gathering requirements and you're documenting the process, you could use it as a tool by which to help you do that. Because you can, within the activities, for example, you can add description information and you can type other things on these various activities. But it's also useful once someone has built and implemented a BizFlow process. If you want to understand what's happening inside that process, you can produce a document. It's like a little bit of a reverse technical specification. So it'll give you the details about how that process was implemented. And so it can be very helpful both at the design time of working with BizFlow and once a process is implemented from a technical implementation standpoint. At this point, I'd like you to, again, close the studio. I should say save the file again. So you can just do save local. And that's going to overwrite the previous file. And then I want you to just close the map.